we're going to be using our medium-size hoop. There are two parts to this hoop. You've got your inside hoop and your outside hoop. We are going to be moving over to our fabric here. Now, if you're taking a look at the directions, it's having you lay the two pieces that you sewed last time out flat on the counter. So we're going to lay it out flat just the way we sewed it. We have it pretty side up. We can see the pretty side of our fabric. We can see our stitching. Our stitching and our raw edges are right up here at the top. We're simply going to divide this into quadrants, kind of like in math when you have a grid. You divide it, have a dividing line here and a dividing line here. This is quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. We want to embroider right here in quadrant 2. So we're going to take our hoop, our big hoop. We want it to sit flat on the ground or on the countertop. If it's rocking back and forth, if it's not sitting flat, you've got it upside down. Make sure you get it flat. We are going to stick it right underneath our fabric in quadrant 2. We're going to kind of just find that center point. If you do it too close to the edge, your embroidery is not going to be in the center of your pillowcase. We're going to find that center point right up here. We're going to take our big hoop or our small hoop and stick it just right so that it forms on the inside of our embroidery hoop. You simply push it in till it goes. Sometimes you need to loosen or tighten the screw up here in this left-hand corner. Lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. We stick it in all the way so it's nice and firm, and then we want to tighten that screw so that our project is not going to go anywhere. There's a spring inside of these buttons on the side of the hoop right here. We're going to squeeze those together so that spring is compressed, and we are going to simply slip it right here on this metal guide on our hoop. We're going to pull our fabric so that it is not tucked under itself and make sure that our attachment is secure on the machine. We're going to push escape just so that we get rid of that message that was on the screen, and we're going to go to layout because we want our machine to recognize that a hoop has been placed on the machine. So this right here is where it's going to embroider. We just want to push the check button. What that's going to do is it's going to move the machine. It's going to move the machine a little bit. The machine does all the work, and it's going to outline where it's going to embroider at. It is now recognizing on the monitor that there is a hoop and there is an embroidery. So as of right now, our hoop right here is outlined and our embroidery is going to go right here. The big problem with that is that's going the wrong direction. So right up here on our screen, we want to rotate our embroidery, which is this button right here. You'll notice even though I'm pushing it, it's not moving. We need to make it a little bit smaller first. So we simply make our embroidery smaller. We just make it small enough that we can actually rotate it. Then we push the rotate button, and now I can have my embroidery. It's going to read DHMS this way. That's just fine. I personally feel like that looks like it's going to be upside down. However, if you're looking at the print of my fabric, that probably is the direction we want it to go. Typically speaking, I would say rotate it around 270 degrees so that the embroidery is going this way, DHMS. For the sake of this project, we are going to leave it rotated simply at 90 degrees. Now, I can make it bigger again. I can take it back up to 100% because my hoop is wider to the up and down than it was side to side. So now that I've got it positioned, I can push the check button again. The embroidery is going to move around and it's going to outline. It's going to start in the back left corner or back right corner, and it's going to identify how big that embroidery is going to be and where it's at. I can move it side to side or up and down a little bit depending on where I want it to be. For today's purposes, that's going to be just fine. I simply push the OK button and the machine is going to think and it's going to program itself. It's going to show you a lot of information. It's going to start with the D. So D is letter 1 of 4. I could stop between each letter and I could change the thread color if I wanted. That's very time consuming, but I could do that. Just when it switches to number 2, okay, so I can start it at any point once it's finished thinking. I can start on the H, I can start on the M, I could start on the S. What maybe you run out of thread halfway through. That's why it gives you the ability to be able to start at various points. It's still thinking, it's at 70% thinking. Once that gets to 100%, it will actually put up a time amount. My guess is that this is going to take 7 to 8 minutes to embroider, so we'll just have to wait and see. Actually, I think it was 9 minutes when it's popped up previously. So it's at 100%, 9 minutes. One important thing to remember is your stitch and tear. Stitch and tear is located in the cupboard right down here by your knees. It's simply a bolt of fabric that is going to help stabilize your fabric. That needle is going up and down so fast and so many times that we need to stabilize the fabric. So you just need a piece large enough to go under where you're going to be embroidering at. This is going to be plenty big for the sake of my needs. I'm just going to slide it right underneath the fabric, and the needle will sew it into place, so we really don't need to worry about that. So now I simply hold this top thread to get this started. I want to lower my presser foot, and then I'm just going to push the back stitch button right here. I'm going to push and hold, and then I release. It's going to sew about 10 stitches. That gives me time to clip this thread if I want to. I'm just going to pull it off to the side, and then I push and hold that button again, and it's going to continue. The machine does the work. You really don't have to do anything. You just sit here with the machine. In 9 minutes, this is going to be done with the embroidery. Now, you'll notice that it's smooth stitches. It's looking really good. That needle's going up and down really fast. I'm making sure that my project does not get tucked under in any way. We're just going to let the machine do its work. Now, let's say the stitches aren't even, or it's not stitching, or something is wrong. I can stop it. I simply push the same button I pushed when I started the machine. That's also your stop. I fix whatever the problem is. Maybe it's a threading problem, maybe it's tangling up, maybe it's making this weird sound. I can take my project off the machine, but I don't want to take it out of the hoop. I fix whatever the problem is, I can put my hoop back on the machine, and then I can pick up right where I left off. Or I can backtrack just a little bit. By pushing that button, it's kind of like a rewind button. I can go forward, I can go backward if I push that button. You'll notice on the screen it just kind of keeps track. We've got 8 minutes left. The big thing is the machine's doing all the work, but you control the machine. So you need to sit here with the machine while it's doing your embroidery. We are going to take a quick timeout, and we will come back to this when the embroidery is done. Okay, the final steps here, as the embroidery finishes the embroidery project, the machine will actually beep at you, and it will pop up a message right up here on the screen that says, "You're done." You can escape out of that message, you can turn the machine off, and then you can release your project from the machine. You simply squeeze the sides of the hoop, tighten that spring so that we can release it from the machine, trim our threads, and take our project out of our hoop. At this point, this is where you want to get rid of, well, clean up your station, make sure you're picking up after yourself. This is where the seam ripper, you can do this at your unit, comes in really handy. Essentially what we want to do is we want to trim the threads off the top and the bottom. This was our starter thread, this was our ending thread, and then in between each of the letters, the threads are connected, so we want to get rid of those threads. So if you use your seam ripper and just go right underneath, you can usually get those threads out. It makes a huge difference on your project to have those letters separated so they are no longer connected. On the back side, this is where our stitch and tear was. The reason it's called stitch and tear is because first you stitch and then you tear. You can get rid of all of the stitch and tear between the letters. It simply just provided the stability while we needed it. However, this is all going to be on the inside of our project. We don't need to pull all of that out. However, if you are an OCD person and pay attention to those details, yeah, you'll want to pull those out. We're trimming off the threads on the front and the back. You don't need to necessarily separate the letters on the back side. And that's pretty much it. Your embroidery is done and you're ready for step 4.